Yes, I do.
Growing up, I've always identified as an athlete. But over the years, the definition has changed for me. I looked at being an athlete so simplistically. I thought it only meant how many goals you score in a game or how fast you ran. I never thought about what athleticism really means or how to become more athletic. Okay, hi, I'm Chandra. I'm a senior on the tennis team, and this is a story of how I got here. So I played a number of different sports growing up. The first sport that I ever played was soccer. I played rec leagues, co-gender, for about like 10 years. And then I realized that in high school I really wanted to play sport, but then I realized I didn't do any of the club leagues and I wouldn't be good enough. So I tried running. I thought I could really get good at that sport. I have the body for it. And I remember during the summer, I literally ran like 3 laps and I thought I was going to throw up. When I joined cross country, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But shortly, I realized that I was going to meet some of the best friends I've ever made. Running wasn't just a sport for me at the time, it was my way of life. I even got in the newspaper. I didn't just identify myself as a runner, but everyone else who knew me also did. Running gave me everything: my friends, my work ethic, my social life, confidence, and even purpose. Until it didn't. Running went from being my escape to needing to escape from it. Even though my times were semi-competitive at a high school level, I was running on terrible form. The crazy thing is that no one ever told me. As a developing young female, having proper technique for an extremely repetitive motion is imperative. This is what I had wished I had known earlier. It seems crazy that someone can do severe damage to one's body with a slow jog, but over the course of 500 some miles per shoe, it adds up. It started off with just a dull, achy pain, but it was constant. The pain would go from my knee one day to my hip the next day and to my ankle another day. I tried everything, from icing, stretching, rolling, cupping, and when the pain didn't stop, I even bought compression socks, custom insoles, stability enhancing running shoes. I had no idea what was going on and how I could fix it. And that's when it happened. I tore my patellar tendon 5 millimeters as a distance runner. It's like crazy because like how I tore my patellar tendon, I was on a track and like I was running and like we're doing this thing called striders. It's just to like lengthen like, your muscles. And it's like I wasn't even like doing a sprint, and when I came down on it, it just like pop. It's probably one of the worst moments you'll feel in your life, but not for the reason you think. It's the flooding realization that you might not ever be the same athlete you once were. On my continuous journey to understand the epidemic of knee injuries, I got to speak with former student athlete Jackie Farnhold. How long have you been playing soccer for?
Probably since I was like 3. So what is that, 17 years, 18 years?
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I had always looked at cross country as my life, but for Jackie, it really was her entire life.
But it's definitely hard not to have that release and that sense of like, here's like an automatic 25 friends when you move to a new place. Like going to college, it was easier because you came in and it was like, okay, freshman orientation, you meet everybody. But I'd already been with however many people for, 10 days beforehand. And here it's like new place, new people, no kind of middle ground other than whatever we're studying. So that's been different. And I definitely feel like kind of stir crazy sometimes where I don't know how to get rid of my energy or my frustrations or stress. I could just go hit a ball before, and now it's just like I'm gonna cook dinner because that's what I have to do.
I didn't ever want to feel like this again. I didn't want to feel like I couldn't do basic mundane tasks like walking up the stairs. It was that led me to quit cross country after my freshman year of college. With the help of a close friend, the field hockey coaches, and long nights spent on drills, I could hold my own in a practice. Field hockey was unlike anything that I had ever done ever before. It used an entire different system of muscles. I went from doing a slow jog to quick sprints. Field hockey gave me something that cross country never did. It gave me the feeling like I was being taken seriously. My injuries that I sustained in cross country, I never felt like I deserved to feel injured, especially because my sport is contactless. But with field hockey, I wasn't scared to voice my injuries. With that being said, my injuries were not even contact related. I ended up having wrist problems, as well as a strained quad. And that's when I met our athletic trainer, Greg.
Every conceivable sport, whatever the season was, I played it. So there was soccer, football in the streets, and hockey, and baseball, you name it. It was part of my DNA.
Greg and I shared the same love of sports, but at the time, I didn't feel like I loved field hockey. I continued to experience pain whenever I played, and I stopped enjoying it. Greg helped me by coming up with exercises, but it didn't help the way I wanted it to help. That's when I looked to social media for advice. Almost all fitness influencers preached about restricted motion in your lifting form, and I took it to heart. When I began going to the gym again, I filmed myself and made sure I had proper technique in all my lifts.
So I went to McDaniel College from 2015 to 2019. I played 4 years of college basketball for the Green Terror, graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's in kinesiology. And I've been strength training, lifting since I was 15 years old, starting in high school.
This is Isaac, a current coach under Ben Patrick, aka Knees Over Toes Guy, for the ATG program. Although I didn't know Isaac when we were at McDaniel together, I did get to know him after through his social media. His social media was preaching something that I had never heard before.
I think it was like November of 2018. I first saw Ben Patrick, Knees Over Toes Guy, on Instagram.
I thought I was just looking up another fitness influencer preaching the same thing about form, but he was different.
You know that both reverse step-ups and using a slant board are proven to improve patellar pain? I did not know this.
I had first seen this exercise in physical therapy. It was then that I realized that Ben Patrick was taking these injury rehab exercises and giving them the respect that they deserve.
So I definitely take some of those like body weight exercises like to heart now, because I know everybody's like, oh, we can just get toned. It's really about working the muscle groups to do what they're supposed to do, and instead of getting like the line in between your thigh and your hamstring. It's not necessarily about the physical appearance of what you gain from all this stuff. It's more of like, what is it doing for your body, and how is it going to prevent you from being 40 and needing a knee replacement or whatever it happens to be.
This is different. Like, this style of training is way different, something I've never even had experience with in my life. I'm changing my structure of my body, my tendons, my connective tissue, my muscles.
Although Isaac's claim seems a little too good to be true, I had witnessed it firsthand. My freshman seminar, Born to Run, shared some of the same philosophies as the ATG program. I used to be a heel striker as a distance runner. This class helped me understand why heel striking was wrong. It might not be wrong for everyone, but for me, it was a factor in all my injuries. When you run, your momentum is going forward, but because I was a heel striker, my foot would land in front of my body. As my high school track coach put it, I was, quote, putting on the brakes with each step I took. This meant that my joints had to absorb the shock of each step I took.
The shoes nowadays that people buy that are so-called like the top of the line trainers, stuff you could work out in, they have a slight heel raise. So it will probably be about here. Your body has to compensate for that. Meaning, like, you're now, if you're gonna be on a straight, neutral line that, like, a resting position is good, you're gonna have to, like, lean over. And in order to compensate that and get in a balanced way, you're gonna have to tilt your hips and and it puts a lot of stress on the low back. That's why so many people have low back injury, just tightness, soreness all the time.
Isaac and the other ATG coaches, as well as Ben Patrick, all wear 0 drop and 0 stack height shoes. This can be explained by one of their core principles. They believe that the body was built correctly.
We weren't born with shoes on, so.
The more gadgets that I got to help fix my form ended up actually hurting me instead. The custom inserts, compression socks, and specialized training shoes, these all enabled me to continue on my bad form and not directly address the problem right in front of me. When I run barefoot or wear shoes with almost no support, my form changes entirely. My body automatically switches to forefoot striking. By running on your toes, you're actually putting your greatest point of impact right beneath your body. If you give yourself the time of day, your body can naturally heal itself. What you said degenerative, like what does that mean? Like, can you explain that?
Essentially, over time, they said it would increasingly get worse to the point where it could tear, like fully, which would require surgery to put it back together.
Mm-hmm.
But I never got it looked at again, so I don't know if it increased in size, and obviously it didn't rupture. So.
Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't believe Jackie, but I do think we have become so conditioned to accept that we are fragile.
I had 10 years of chronic patellar pain. I spent $10,000 in surgical alterations, another $10,000 in treatments because I didn't know this data, that I could let my knees over my toes. And in fact, that on a step-down test, the worse you are with your knees over toes, which I was the worst with my knees over my toes, makes you statistically more likely to have knee pain and knee injuries.
Even with the knowledge that Ben Patrick provides, we live in fear of injury. Years and years of watching videos about proper lifting form, it makes you feel like you'll break if not done properly. It planted this overwhelming sense of anxiety whenever I exercised. In that if I didn't have proper lifting form, over time I would inevitably hurt myself.
It's roughly like a 2 centimeter tear in my patella, right by my kneecap. And then my senior year, mid-season, I partially tore my ACL.
The anterior cruciate ligament is one of the 2 main internal ligaments in the knee that help stabilize it. It prevents the rotation of the tibia on the femur.
We talk about the defining moments for an athlete, and I think we tend to emphasize the importance of what we would do when we are injured. But I don't think this necessarily represents the athlete itself.
You know, there's a line, I guess, between accepting the pain and working through it and then pushing yourself to the point where there's a compromise elsewhere that essentially ends your career.
We're talking about individuals who've trained for years and years and years, and if they haven't trained appropriately, if their technique isn't good, then they're basically just kind of training on poor technique and compensating for their poor technique by, how do I say it, creating poor movement patterns as they train.
This isn't a representation of how good an athlete Jackie is. ACL tears are becoming more and more common in even elite playing athletes. Last year, I remember scrolling and seeing AZ Fudd's cover story on ESPN.
Well, AZ Fudd, she's a shooter, she's a scorer, she's the best player in the country. The first sophomore to win Gatorade National Player of the Year. What a future this young lady has in front of her.
All I kept saying was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Based off of the science that Ben Patrick has been talking about, I can't help but think that it's the common misconception of how your knee should move that led to Azzi Fudd and her mom both tearing their ACL.
If your body can move that way, you can get strong in that range of motion. There's not necessarily a bad movement for the body. So like when people ask me if there's a certain exercise that's good or bad, I'm like, I can't answer that. There's no bad exercise. There's a bad, if you're using a weight that's too much for you in that specific range of motion, then yeah, it's a bad movement for you. You need to regress it, back off, and not use as much weight. So there's no bad human movement. There's just one you're not ready for yet.
One of the reasons I was so passionate about this topic is that ACL tears are becoming increasingly common in younger and younger ages.
So many people have like these like devastating like knee injuries, and like they're not fully, like a lot of people, like I know, like it's something that's so hard to recover from, and like you're not always like 100% like back to your original like, you know, athleticism, and it's just hard to like that. I don't think like people should have to deal with that. Like I don't know, I think there's so much like information out there, but yeah, I don't know.
I think we too readily accept the idea that we are injured because of general wear and tear.
What was that person you saw on TikTok?
His name's like Aaron Krootball or whatever, but
Is he a doctor?
he was a chiropractor, or he is a chiropractor, and he talks a lot about that, but he also does like the sissy squats that I've seen him do, and like the tibial raise, like all that other stuff. And he just like emphasizes that like even like when you're lifting, like deadlifting, like, you know, your back can hurt. It doesn't mean the end of the world. Like it's if like your body is like, you know, if you're exercising all parts of it and you're not like focusing on a specific group, like there's no muscle imbalance, you know. And I think that's like, yeah, like that's kind of was like where I was going with that in terms of like my perspective. What caught my attention about Aaron Krootball is that he was directly debating one of the most controversial topics in exercise science. Should you or should you not round the back on a squat or deadlift?
Lift with your back, not your legs. New study shows a bent spine is better for lifting than a neutral spine.
Aaron uses social media to create funny videos to inform the general public about common misconception in the world of biomechanics.
Same researchers on Earth.
So like say I'm on a basketball court, there's a loose ball, I gotta go pick it up. Like I have to put that round in my back to actually go pick that up. Like if we follow the quote unquote like guru in back strengthening, his name's Stuart McGill. He's obsessed with a neutral spine. So he thinks like we should never train like this, we should never train like that. He thinks keeping the spine neutral is the only way. So if I keep my spine neutral, this movement, I can never get down there. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to go down here and round the back.
I used to think that in order to get better, I just had to work harder. But it isn't just that. Progress and growth is anything but linear. It's about believing in what you're doing. It's about sharing experiences with people that bring you joy and creating a life you don't have to regularly escape from. Sometimes I'd wish I had found tennis earlier in my college career, but I'm just so glad that I got to experience it in general. It gave me that same type of fulfillment that cross country once had given me. I think if I achieved some of my goals in high school athletically, it wouldn't have made me branch out into other sports in college. I think I wouldn't have been as curious and into learning how the body works, and how that gave me a deeper understanding of my own self. And it was because I branched out after high school that I understood the importance of different movements and incorporating them into your daily life.
I really do not believe that specializing in athletics at a young age is a good thing. In fact, studies show that that is a negative. And for my sons, they were, from the very earliest part of their lives, they were influenced to play lots of different sports, whether it's outdoor or indoor sports, so that they just don't get stale in playing one thing. And I think that's really important.
It's kind of interesting coming back here and stepping back in this place that where that journey started for me. What was it? It's 3 years later now, so it's definitely bringing back some memories of trying out those things in the gym for the first time.
For Isaac, as well as many of the other ATG coaches, they continue to push the boundaries of what they can physically do for their body to excel in a sport they no longer play in an organized competitive level. I think it's weird that a sport can make up such a large part of who we are, and then we just stop after college and or high school.
In this, later on in this clip, I'm going to show videos of Jackie and I playing soccer in
Peru.
In Peru, yeah. Yeah, Jackie and I, we did a really cool Jan term where we, it was kind of covering stories, capturing stories of life in the Amazon, and kind of, I don't know, Jackie, do you want to say a little bit about it too?
Chandra is talking about how we played soccer with them, and it was really just, it's an international game, and so we were able to kind of connect with the community, and then we ended up having a dinner with them late before we left, and so it was really nice to just kind of be able to meet all those people and tell stories from our perspective and their perspectives when we got back to McDaniel.
Sports are so much more than just competition. It's a way of life, and we should be able to play our sport past high school and collegiate levels.